All right, so just want to welcome everybody to our first of our Wend Consulting free webinar series that we are working towards helping get more knowledge out into the industry and helping those that are trying to solve problems be able to understand what they can do to be successful in different areas. Our first kickoff here is with the technology selection process. We get a lot of questions out there from some of our clients, some of our vendors in regards to what is the technology selection process and uh, how can we do it successfully to have a solid implementation. So through this webinar, we'll be working through some of the individual slides, talking about some of the high points and low points and some of the details that you definitely want to consider when you decide to make that change to your ERP system, to a specific operational piece of your software or business, or if you're just changing your entire business lines. So a little bit about myself here. My name is Dylan Gamboa. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Wend Consulting. I have about 7 years of experience inside of the petroleum marketers industry, 20 years of software selection and implementation experience, both in the industry and out of the industry. Spent a lot of time implementing accounting softwares, HR softwares, service softwares, and different operational software in different industries across the board. I graduated from Robert Morris University with my bachelor's in economics and American history. I also got my MBA from Robert Morris University as well, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran. Spent 4 years in the Army, and that's how I kind of got my first taste and introduction into the proverbial petroleum industry, because I was a fuel hauler while in the Army, a 92 Foxtrot for anybody out there that knows somebody in the military. So what is technology selection? So at a high level, technology selection can simply be put together in kind of five simple buckets. We'll go through each one of these buckets and how you can definitely work to be successful in your technology selection, how you can bring everybody and everything together to make the right decision, and what does it look like coming out the backside inside the technology selection. So when we look at technology selection for ourselves and for clients out there, the first kind of step is kind of building out that RFP. So what is that? That's gathering information. Let's make sure we get our fact sheets together, and let's get that itemized list of requirements. From there, we want to take our RFP out to market. When we take it out to market, that allows us to be able to be in the driver's seat in the way of understanding what is out there. From there, we want to set up our demos to make sure that we get customized demos that look to solve our problems. And then we work into actually seeing the product itself and how it's going to solve our needs from there. And then ultimately, it comes down to the selection time there. So we want to evaluate everything from price to features to functionality to ensure that this is the right solution for our business. So where do we start? So the big thing with the technology selection, we get questions all the time, is where do we start? We have to understand why we need a new system. Is why we need a new system because people are undertrained and they've given up on the system? Do we need a new system because it's not meeting our business needs out there? Are we looking for a new system because we're not getting support from vendors? All of these things is where we definitely want to start and understand how our business needs to work and operate. What's the right time? So we get a lot of questions surrounding when's the right time to make that switch. Because the technology selection process, especially on like an ERP, you're looking at it almost is the proverbial open heart surgery, right? So you're changing up your entire business. So when it comes to the right time, there's good things out there like change in management. That's a good time to kind of evaluate your current software and what potential softwares are out there. If your vendor on your individual software has stopped supporting it, whether they've sunset it or put it into maintenance mode or moved it into another bucket out there to where the support is just not there for you. Also, another good time is when you're evolving business needs. So whether that's changing a line of business, or we've added new people, new offices, new locations, that evolving business need to be able to be successful is also a great time to look for a new selection. Acquisition. We get a lot of times where people say, hey, we're going through an acquisition, and we're bringing in new business. Well, that's a great time to evaluate, do we need new software out there to meet the new business needs that's coming on and be able to sustain the current business needs that we have. Throughout this, I like to throw out there fun facts from our time and people that I've talked to, colleagues out there, but major companies like Bank of America, your Wells Fargo, your Blue Cross Blue Shields, they actually go through the technology selection process and put each of their softwares up for bid approximately every 3 years. I know that's not normal inside of this industry, but some of those bigger companies, especially in this day and age where technology is growing and evolving ever so fast, that the difference between what you have today and what you could have 3 to 5 years down the road is very eye-opening out there. So let's talk about top 10 things to consider when we're looking for a software. This is kind of the guide that we like to go through to be able to understand why we're doing this and what is kind of the start for that. So first thing is fit. I know it might seem like an obvious choice, but a good fit between the software's functionality and the business requirements is crucial. Too often companies select a software based on recognizability rather than the actual usefulness of that software. We got to be able to review the fit, the functionality, including any of the industry specific features and functions when we're selecting a new software, a new ERP, or a new operational software out there. The second thing is the completeness. How much does the solution offer? A lot of the softwares inside this industry offer kind of a modular look and feel, but when you get into the depths of it, you find that sometimes those individual softwares don't take care of certain parts of your business. So we want to be able to make sure that we understand everything that the software offers. Will we be required to purchase a number of different outside solutions along with our ERP to get the actual full functionality we need? An enterprise solution should be a one-stop place for most business management functions. So single end-to-end softwares are more cost-effective in the short term and do require less money spent on development and interfacing with different systems out there. The third thing that we always want to look at is reporting analytics. We always hear out there that, I can't get my reports, I need more analytics. So we look at that. In this day and age, the modern world thrives on these analytics. An ERP with a built-in kind of business intelligence, analysis, reporting, dashboard is crucial for companies who want to stay on top of their business trends, their performance, their KPIs, and individual indicators for their business. Next thing, integration. So because plenty of software is out there solve individual needs, they also claim a lot of the full integration. We want to make sure that we understand all of the moving pieces that we have out there. So we want to look at things like tank monitors. We want to look at back office POS systems. We want to look at pumps. We want to look at the meters we have on trucks, just to ensure that everything that we do to run our business on a day-to-day, we have that integration coming back into our ERP system. Integration is key for organizations that we want to reduce the duplicate data entry, especially if, back on our bullet point of completeness, if we have to go out there and find something to to solve a operational need from there. The next thing is the user interface and experience. We're always looking for that integrated solution that manages all aspects of the business. So we want the best user experience possible. The big thing here is we want to ensure that the people that are utilizing this new software day to day, it has the look and the feel throughout the system and each module that the user experience reduces the risk of a less evolved system and more frustration that out there inside of your office there. Obviously, number 6 is that total cost. The total cost is a super important point to consider. Is the cost of ownership? Is there a total cost of ownership? Is there a monthly subscription out there? Will you require extensive customization to meet your business needs with the software? The total cost of an ERP system, not only the software, but also the implementation services. Many companies we look at to try to make sure that the cost of the software and the services to be able to get that software up, running, and implemented sit in that 1-to-1 to 1-to-1.5 ratio. But in reality, sometimes it is a little bit harder. So when we're selecting a new ERP system, it's important to understand not only how much the software will cost up front, but how much we'll be paying in support fees, subscription fees, customization, and other pieces of the actual total solution. The next thing we always want to look at as well is hosting. Some folks out there in the industry, this is a new concept. Some folks are already on a type of hosting cloud out there. So it's time, when you're going through this, to be able to sit there and talk about, what are the pros and cons of hosting? How big is the company? How strong is our internet connection? Do we have to have on-site IT support, or can we outsource that to somebody? Is the cloud something that creates redundancy, so I'm always up and running? There's several big questions that go alongside the decision to host an on-site solution or move out there into the cloud. We want to make sure that we take everything into consideration before we make our choice, because what works for you what works for others may not work for you. The last thing is, or not the last thing, the 8th thing is the speed of implementation. So as I stated earlier, this is kind of like an open heart surgery. You're always looking, making these type of selections, making those decisions. You're really exposing and putting your business out there and to make changes, right? So the quicker you can get through that implementation to where it's right and correct is the best way to go. If we're purchasing an ERP directly from a vendor, we want to make sure that that vendor has the ability to get that implemented or has partnered with people to be able to get that implementation done in a cost-effective and timely manner. Always want to make sure that you set your go-live date and then start working your way back from there to make sure that we have the ability to make it inside of that time for that speed of implementation. We always want to ask questions out there like the vendor's implementation history, any references, determine how they approach implementation, whether their projects were delivered on time and on budget, or whether there's any issues in the actual implementation, because all of these things affect that speed of implementation. The ninth thing that we like to look at when going through the software technology selection process is mobility. It is a new day and age out there in regards to people on their phones and their tablets. We have salespeople out there, owners are out there, operation folks are out there, store managers are walking around the store. So the ability to have something mobile is one of the most important features that we try to look at when looking for a new software. I know it's a little bit hard when it comes to accounting to be able to do that on the mobile side of it, but we definitely want to take into consideration our operations folks and those out there driving the revenue, that they have the ability to be in the field and keep projects moving, keep KPIs at their fingertips to be able to be successful out in the field. And the last thing we always look at is kind of the vendor viability. So most people on this call here know about all of the consolidation that's happened inside of the software industry. There's a lot of flux out there in regards to that. So one of the questions we definitely want to be asking out there is that vendor viability. That we want to ensure where they're going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. I know what we're getting a lot out there is it's just words coming back that of course we're going to be there, but honestly, we want to make sure that we work something into that contract about that vendor viability to ensure that when you make this decision that you are hopping over to a vendor that is investing in their software, investing in their solution, and working through those pieces to ensure that they are going to be there for the long haul. So, building the RFP. So the first step that you always want to go through is to build that RFP. For those that don't know out there, the RFP is that request for proposal. So what do? We want to make sure that we ask all the questions. So the questions, it's about roughly 1,000, I think, or more out there, but really we want to start with what are our needs for the system? What are our must-haves? What are our nice-to-haves? Maybe what are we looking at for down the road? Have you seen or heard about anything out there that you want? Are you looking to reduce headcount around the office? Are you looking to increase revenue out there? Are you looking to add trucks? Are you looking to split off a piece of business? What are the needs for the system? We always like to look at it as, let's look at our must-haves, let's look at our nice-to-haves, and then let's create kind of our magic wand out there. If I could scan an invoice and it auto-populates the data off that invoice and puts it into AP, that sounds super fun. Can I get that? And we ask vendors that through the process with all of those questions that we've asked internally. We also want to look at the individual sites. So whether it's a retail store or it's a truck out there, what are our requirements? What are the goals? What are the future growth and expansion plans? The best part about the RFP is that evaluation side. Because you're asking all these questions, because you're looking at your entire business all the way across the board, the evaluation is super key, because at that point in time, you can talk to all of your people when you ask these questions. You can see what their pain points are, what issues they're trying to solve, what things do they do on a day-to-day basis that we can attempt to either improve or we need to ensure our go-forward solution is able to solve that. It's also a great time to document your process, document how you do things, document the way in which you want to have your process be going forward from there. And it's also a great time to see in that evaluation, what are the technology limitations, not only on the ERP side, but on the operational side, on tank monitors, on POS systems, on trucks, what are the technology limitations there? And then obviously the last piece on that reporting and compliance needs. Too often, if you start asking a lot of these questions, you find somebody spending 5 to 10 hours putting this report together every month and distributes this report out, but you ask the people who they distribute it to and say, hey, what do you use this report for? And we have found about 5, 6 times out of 10 that person just sits there and goes, no, I don't really look at that report. So it's a great time to talk about what reporting actually makes sense, to reevaluate the current reporting that you have, what new reporting is going to be out there, and establish some of those KPIs and pieces to be successful. We like to, over here at Wend, when helping clients, put everything together in kind of a level playing field. And we do it by what we call building the scorecard. So building the scorecard to us comes out of the post step of the RFP. You want to build your scorecard to where everything is just apples to apples, and it's very objective all the way across the board. We should be able to ask each of the questions to the vendors that we have and mark them yes or no, or yes with an asterisk, no with an asterisk, and notes. This allows you to be able to see all in one spot who can and can't do something on a system to be able to meet your needs. You can see here on one of our examples here, we have our list down the side there of feature MH, that's kind of the must-haves, and then N2H, your nice-to-haves. It was a little bit too small, but on this book here, we go all the way down into Magic Wand. You also want to make sure that you break up your segments of business on your scorecard. So the segments of business, if you've got short trucks and you've got transportation and you've got accounting needs and you've got retail, we want to break those up to kind of 4 different individualized scorecards, because some vendors may do something way better in short truck and accounting, but they may struggle in things like transportation and retail. So you want to make sure that you're breaking those up, because ultimately you're trying to make the decision on what's best for the business. And you may find that the best accounting software doesn't have the best operational software, and some of the operational software doesn't have a good accounting software. So when we make that decision of where we want to go, we can have those conversations with the vendor to say, hey, you struggle in this area, but can you integrate, to go back to a couple slides ago on integration, can you integrate to this operational software that we've made a decision that best fits our need from there. The next step after we built our scorecard out and we've looked we got all of our data gathering together and we're working through that, is we got to take it to market. So we like to advise clients, advise people out there that you want to start asking right off the bat with colleagues in your area. What are they using? Whether it's somebody that's doing the same business as you a couple towns over, or somebody that's doing the same business as you a couple states over. Ask them, what are they using? What do they like? What do they dislike about it? This is kind of that pre-reference to kind of help narrow down what you should start looking for out there. You definitely want to hop out to the internet. The internet's a great resource, and search out your keywords. So if you're a propane company, use things like propane management software, your propane dispatching software, propane monitoring software, and you'll get a bunch of different vendors in your top 10 that can satisfy those needs. Same thing with convenience stores, same thing with wholesale fuel software. You want to make sure you create your list off of those that you're finding out there, whether it's a colleague reference, trade show reference, keyword search reference from there, and take that list and build those lists out on your scorecard and start your discovery calls. One thing I've always known out there is that salespeople are always ready to showcase their software. So when salespeople are out there ready to show their software, they're ready to take that call. They're ready to talk about all the fun things that it can do, all the features, all those, all the different nuances. And you can find when you have your scorecard in front of you that you can start marking off some of those boxes, and kind of that preliminary salesman says it does this. So you can start narrowing down from your list of 5 to 10 vendors down to 3 to 5, because anything more than that and you'll get kind of lost out there. Another fun fact out there is search engine optimization is evaluated every 3 weeks. So when you're out there searching your keywords for propane management software, and you see somebody in that kind of top 10 from there, if you search again in another couple of weeks, you'll see some of those websites may have moved up and down, because as these vendors out there are putting more blogs and putting more information out there, their rankings on that top 10 of those searches move them up and down. Setting up demos. So when we're setting up the demos, we want to make sure that we provide a good piece of the RFP and our must-have list to each vendor. We have found that when you provide the RFP and this must-have list to each vendor, they are able to start crafting a demo that will actually meet your needs and actually look at what you're trying to solve all the way across the board. It also allows it to be on a level playing field. If we don't have it documented out and we're not sending the same information out to each vendor, you can get lost in this vendor does this vendor does this. As long as we're asking the same questions, we ensure that as we score them going through the demos, we're all on the same page. We also want to make sure that we set up enough time for any type of questions and deep dives out there. So there's plenty of vendors out there who'll say, oh, it'll just take an hour. I always recommend either adding about an extra 1.5 to 2 times the amount of time, because as you start seeing stuff, as you start working through stuff, questions are going to pop up, deep dives are going to happen. You're going to see something and you're going to go, well, how does that connect over here? And those type of things don't necessarily derail the demo, but definitely make for more time. So we always want to make sure that we have not only our initial buffer time for the demo, what the vendor recommends, but let's make sure that we add some extra time on the back end. It's always advised to schedule your demos Tuesday through Thursday. Everybody knows coming in on Monday, we're catching up from the weekend. We're seeing what's happening. We got to get bill of ladings into the system. We got to get things billed out. And everybody's on their computers, pounding out emails and setting up for their entire week. So we always suggest making sure that your demos are Tuesday through Thursday. The reason why we don't like the Friday is because basically by noon, as everybody knows, we're already checked out thinking about what we're going to do for the weekend. So inside that Tuesday to Thursday window is kind of the best, because we're in the meat of the week and we can take time to focus on these demos. We always advise that decision makers should definitely participate in the demo. When decision makers participate in the demo, it allows them to be a part of understanding what that day-to-day looks like inside their business that they may not have seen in a few years, because they're out there doing other things. So always make sure that we get the decision makers a part of each of these demos. We also recommend that we don't leave out our day-to-day users. You know, this is their life. We don't suggest that they sit in on every single piece of the demo, but if we're going to cover AP and get in there, maybe we should invite in the AP clerk or the person who's doing AP because they offer kind of an additional insight to it, and it also preps them for knowing that a change is coming, and allows them to kind of get that buy-in ahead of time and help with that change management out the backside. Last thing, when we're setting up these demos and we're working with these vendors, is always ask the vendor to tell you a story in their system. When I put the story in quotes there, the way I like to explain it is we want to make sure that they kind of show us the end-to-end process, the kind of the cradle to grave. When I set up an account inside the system, what are the things I can do with that account? How do I invoice that account? And how do I mark a payment up against that account? And how does that customer receive those invoices? Let them build out a story to show you what that day-to-day looks like inside the system, because that's going to be your life going forward. Now it's demo time. So we always suggest inside the demo to make sure that you take your time. You know, this is a multi-year decision, so do not rush your demos. You want to make sure that you take the ample amount of time to understand each part of the system. Allow for that first demo to be a overarching high overview. Take back from there and kind of compile your notes, and then ask for specific targeted areas on demo 2s and demo 3s, because we want to make sure that we're getting all of our pieces and information and our punch list on our scorecard put together properly. We also want to make sure that we have the key team members on each segment of the demo. Like I said before, let's make sure that we have, you know, the AP people involved in the piece of the demo when we're talking about how do we do AP inside the system. Same thing on the operational side. We want to make sure that we have the right operations folks in there understanding what their day-to-day is going to look like going forward. We always advise making sure that you don't have the wrong people at the wrong demo, because that kind of it's not really a value add from there. I know it seems obvious, but you know, we always want to take notes during the demo. The reason why we want to take these notes is because we'll be looking at multiple solutions, multiple softwares out there. We want to make sure that we understand that when we see something in the system, that we know which key feature or item that we liked is something that we associate with the right vendor. Always try to look out for the proverbial demo sniper. I say this term, but there is something in the vendor world out there where they have people that do nothing but demos. So they have their demo system, they have the perfect story, they take you through it, they wow you with, you know, features and functionality that you know, seem great at the time, but you end up finding out, oh, we don't really use a lot of that. So let's make sure that we watch out for that demo sniper and ask them questions, dive deeper into different segments of the software, because at that point in time, because they are just so focused on all they do is demos, that we can actually expose other sides of the system to make sure that it's truly going to meet our needs. We always want to allow a little bit of time between each vendor demo, whether it's we're bouncing between 3 vendors or 2 vendors or 5 vendors. We want to allow time to make sure that we digest the content. Digesting that content, looking at our notes, looking at our scorecard, understanding where we stand on each of the individual softwares helps us come to a clearer and better decision from there. We always advise as well to make sure that you get preliminary pricing and references coming out of the first and or second demo, because the last thing we want to do is fall in love with something and get pricing and go, oh, wow, we were not expecting that in any way, shape, or form. That's going to blow out our budget from there. Now, we get to the part that I love the most out there, and the part that I know a lot of companies enjoy, and that's the time for negotiation. The best part of negotiation is you are in the driver's seat at this point in time. You are the one that has to make the decision. You are the one that is going to be spending the money. The salespeople on the flip side are the ones that are trying to get you to spend the money. So during this time, you have your most amount of negotiation leverage to be able to get the right solution that you want. So what are some of the tips for a successful negotiation? Understand who does which part. Too often out there inside of negotiation, you find that you get and you look at the software, the licenses make sense, and then you get down to the services piece of it, and when you're looking at the services piece, they'll have hours on it, and you look at those hours and you got to go, okay, if that's your hours, how many hours do I have to put in, and how is that evenly distributed or worked through to make sure who does which part? Do they do setup and configuration and you do data migration? All those type of things you want to make sure that you understand, because that's part of the negotiation. If you're going to have to put more effort in because they just install and set up and configure, we want to make sure that we understand that part of the negotiation and say, hey, this is going to take more time. We're going to need some help and assistance on the back end. Understand each module and functionality. As we talked about before on here, a lot of these softwares out there have different modules. They do different things. They have different functionality. They have different terms. We want to make sure that we understand what that module is, what it does, and what part of it is what part of that software is solving a need inside my business. We want to ensure that we got the right software versions on that. There's sometimes multiple variations of a particular module because it's in flux, between something that's moving from a Toughbook PC inside of a truck over to a tablet. Where do they stand on that? Which one are you buying? So you always want to make sure that we understand the module and its functionality from there. We always want to consider the annual maintenance cost. For a long time out there, those that are on some of the older systems and more sunset systems, we've gotten a real good deal for a long time. These newer modern day systems out there do have an increase in that annual maintenance cost. We want to ensure that we understand what that cost is going to be, and we want to ensure what are we getting for that annual maintenance cost. Are we getting upgrades inside of there? Are we getting additional training? Are we getting support? Do we have to pay for additional support? We want to ensure what are we getting inside of that annual maintenance cost. It's a great spot for negotiation when you find out what you do and don't get inside of that annual maintenance cost. As always, the first offer is never the best offer. There's always room. The proverbial sharpen your pencil is the term we like to use out there, but always know that the first offer is never going to be your best offer from there. We can always find room and space to be able to work through those individual items from there. Always review the contract terms. We don't want to get ourselves stuck into a 5-year solution, 10-year solution, or 10-year contract when it's something that our business needs may be looking at. This is something we're doing for the next 3 years. So always make sure we understand our contract terms. We also want to look at payment terms. Is the renewal up every year on sign date, or is the renewal up on the first of every year? We want to ensure that we don't have any surprise costs, and all of that is detailed out in those contract terms. Another great tip out there that we love to share is never buy more software than you need to run your business. It's a common pitfall when you're looking out there and you see features and functionalities and you go, oh, I really like that. I definitely want to do that. Or I want to start tracking fixed assets in my system. I want to do that. I want to do that. But, you know, in reality, do we really have time right now to be able to do that? It's nice to know. We always look at it as these are nice to know modules, and here's the modules that are run my business. The nice to know modules we can always get at another time. We can always add those features and functionality in when we get through kind of our initial kind of look through the ERP. We also want to make sure, you know, what is reality, right? So we want to distinguish out there between what's, you know, fear from other people, uncertainty, or doubt. You know, we want to ensure that when we're talking to our vendors that we don't let them, you know, fear us or create any type of uncertainty or any type of doubt out there. We want to make sure that we are working, you know, with that vendor, and that vendor has that long-term viability that we talked about. If you can, always try to find out if we can benchmark against other deals. You know, what is the vendor offering other companies that are similar to yours? Are there any other competing vendor offers out there? You know, call out there, find out. You know, we always want to get a good deal. So if we can benchmark up against other deals out there of your size, then we definitely want to have that as a tool inside of our negotiation belt. We also want to make sure that we consider the people versus the process. It's amazing how often vendor project plans do not actually align or assign critical project activities to either the vendor or customer, or completely just omit it. So we want to make sure inside of our change management activities that we get everything that we have included: project plan, basic end-to-end user training. We want to make sure our business processes are documented, whether it's the new business process that we're creating with our new software, or trying to take a business process that we have in our current system, in our current business, and how we accomplish that over in this side of the business. We want to make sure that that type of time, consideration, and those processes are taken into account for inside of our negotiation, because that is something that we need to make sure that we drive down or get added inside of our contract. Some of the other things that we also want to consider is, you know, fixed cost versus time and materials. Some vendors out there will offer up a both type bid, whether it's a fixed cost or a time and material, but each side of those is a great chance for us to negotiate to ensure that we're okay with spending this amount of money, and, you know, or up to this amount of money. Is that something we want to look at as a time and material, or do we want to have that as kind of a fixed cost? And the last tip I always say inside of a successful negotiation is, let's talk about the total cost of ownership. Let's ask the vendor to give us that total cost of ownership of that software over 5 years. We want to ensure that we understand the day one cost, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. When you see those broken out from there, you can find different areas where we can shift and move the right dollar amount and the right pieces to be able to say, hey, we need to bring this number down over here because the longevity of that number is just not going to work for us. Oh, I apologize that my arrow button got stuck. So coming out of the successful negotiation, when we get the price that we want at that point in time, we have selected our software. We know what we have. We know we've kind of identified with our scorecard and with our different pieces what we want. And this decision, though a big one, is one that you want to ensure that you have the kind of longevity behind it. So that's where we start talking about, in the technology selection, what are some of the pitfalls? We want to make sure that we don't have insufficient requirements gathering from the onset. When we talk about all of our questions, we talk about our process, we talk about our people, we talk about our reporting. Take the time to make sure that we get all of the requirements gathering to build out our scorecard. Not including end-to-end users from every department. We want to ensure that each of the departments that are going to be affected by our change here and by our selection have a say inside of the software selection project. Also as well, don't be dazzled by features and forgetting about functionality. It's great that you can drop all your orders on a board and lasso them up and you can get least cost routing out there. But if we can't get an invoice inside the system, then guess what? Features are great, but functionality is key out there because functionality will lead to your automation. Another thing is forcing bad processes into modern systems. When we're sitting there looking at and evaluating our current solution and the current things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, because we're looking at these processes, we want to make sure that, is this really the right process? Do we really need to have this process move forward into our new system? A lot of the modern day systems out there will remove some of those band-aids, workarounds, and those different type things to ensure that you are getting the end result that you're looking for. Some other project pitfalls we've seen is going all in on that big bang. Just because we need a new ERP system and a new trucking software and we need all of these individual things out there, evaluating all of those on a modular type level can be daunting, because on the back end of that, when you go to implement these, that big bang approach can lead to kind of a slow or painful implementation. So you want to start with your core inside the technology selection, understand the different operational pieces out there and evaluate those, but make sure through this you're trying to piece them in so you don't overwhelm your entire business. We also make sure that we don't have any major change management or what they call scope creep, unless it's vital to the business to be able to get it functioning and operating from there. When we're evaluating our technology here, let's make sure that we're not, oh, well, we love to do this, oh, we love to do this, we love to do this. Let's make sure we stay there and focus on that functionality of what we're trying to do and solve in our business. Some other project pitfalls, especially on the technology selection side all the way through, is kind of understaffing that implementation team or not being ready for that implementation. During this technology selection, you should be starting to identify people who are going to be a part of this implementation team, identifying the resources that you have out there, or whether it be internal or external, to make sure that you can get this, once you come out of the technology selection, you get that project going. And then obviously, it's the killer of almost all business here, and that's kind of the lack of communication from the top down from there. So additional items to consider kind of post-selection. When you've completed that technology selection, kind of like the proverbial what's next. When that project creation and expectations happen, you want to ensure that you are keeping that vendor on track. We want to look at all the invoices that they come over. We want to reference our technology selection scorecard and our notes to make sure that we hold them to the promises and accountability for what they said during the pre-sales, the sales, and the post-sales cycle. We want to compile all those integrations. If we are going with a multi-solution, we want to compile those integrations out there and get those to the vendor sooner rather than later, because there's going to take time to bring these two things together. So let's get that in their hands because we've already identified it, in their hands as soon as possible. Data extraction, always get your data out clean. And I always tell people, think about, quote unquote, starting fresh. The current system you have today had certain fields. New systems that are out there have more fields, have more identifiers. So what can we do to clean up our records and make them better for individuals out there? And this is just something I love to tell everybody. When you get done setting up and configuring your system, test. Always test your system. Always make sure that your scenarios that you have and those processes you've identified through the technology selection process, you run those scenarios inside of your new system with your data. Always demand from your vendor kind of that user acceptance testing, so that way you're hitting those real life scenarios and hitting things like month-end processes, closing out your books, putting invoices in, billing customers, all of the things that make your operations run. Last piece is always that go live and that ongoing support. It's going to be hectic at your go live. It's nerve-wracking to switch systems, but if you've done that technology selection process right, it'll be worth it in the end. You'll have more automation. You'll have more time to focus on driving that revenue, being more efficient at your job from there. Always work directly with your vendor for that smooth transition and cutover. Don't go live until you actually work through all of your scenarios in that testing. You don't want to skip over something, and inside that live environment, we run into a major roadblock. Always look forward to your ongoing support. Take advantage of that initial support offered by that company. They move you over to support as soon as they possibly can, but you want to start having that relationship not only with your implementation team, but that post-implementation team and that go-live support and that post-support, so you guys can get comfortable with your technology selection there. And then the last thing I always recommend out there is, just because we went through the technology selection and we've implemented our software, every 6 months, just reach out and re-engage with your account rep, see what's new out there, see what modules have been updated, see what you're struggling with. If you have that relationship with your vendor from there, it makes that the technology that you've picked a better partnership out there completely. And that is the end. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you have a question, by all means, unmute yourself and ask me a question. I know we have a few minutes here, but I'm definitely willing to hop on and stay to see if there's any other questions. Don't all speak at once. If not, I must have done an amazing job here, and I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate you being here for our webinar series. We are looking to do these every month. When we do these every month, we'll have different subjects, different topics. They'll always be free. So hop in, share them with you, your colleagues, those around the office, because you never know who may be having a problem with something that just needs to get resolved, and we may be covering that piece coming up. So some of those webinars that we know are coming up, November 4th, what to expect when you buy a business or sell your business. December 8th, we're looking at loyalty marketing and analysis for C-stores and for those new loyalty programs are starting to pop up around the country with short trucks and propane customers, home heat customers. What does loyalty look like there in a modern day? And then January 5th, we're talking about new year, new initiatives, where we're going to dive into what we're hearing out there in the industry, what people are expecting growth plan wise, kind of hopefully post-COVID, out there. But yeah, if there's no other questions out there, I appreciate everybody's time, and I thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Sherry.